Welcome everybody to the meeting. I remind everyone that the meeting is being live streamed to YouTube. Item 1, apologies. Are there any apologies or members joining remotely, please?
I have apologies from Councillor Gilby and Councillor Bidwell.
I think there's also apologies from Councillor Jefferies and Councillor Bailey. Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. I'm asking members to declare any disclosable pecuniary or affected interest in respect of any matter to be considered at this meeting. Any member with disclosable pecuniary interest in the matter should withdraw from the meeting when the matter is under consideration and should notify the Democratic Services Officer in attendance that they are withdrawing as they have such an interest. If the disclosable pecuniary interest is not entered on the register of members' interests, the monitoring officer must be notified of the interest within 28 days. Any member with an affected interest in the matter must disclose the interest to the meeting. There is no requirement to withdraw from the meeting when the interest is only an affected interest, but the monitoring officer should be notified of the interest, if not previously notified of it, within 28 days of the meeting. Is there anyone here with a disclosable or an affected interest? Thank you. Item 3, the minutes. To consider and approve the minutes of the meeting of the Executive held on the 16th of July 2024. Is there anyone with anything to raise on those minutes as a point of accuracy? Thank you. Then I propose the minutes are adopted as a correct record. Can I have a seconder, please? Seconder?
Yep, Councillor Penner, happy to second.
Thank you. Can I have everybody have a show of hands if you agree for acceptance of those minutes? Thank you. Item 4, urgent items of business. Are there any urgent items of business?
No, none notified.
Surprise, surprise. Okay, and then we come to executive decision items. Item 5. The first, this one is a town centre off-street day rate car park charges. And I'm going to ask Damien James, the Assistant Director of Contract Services, to present the report. Good evening, Damien.
Good evening, members. Thank you, Leader. Yes, so this report covers the town centre parking rates for 3 car parks, the Avenue, Bracken Walk and Weatherway. The fees for these car parks are reviewed annually at this time of year to coincide with the opening of the Lexicon in 2017. The Avenue and Weatherway lease stipulates a cap on annual increases, and Bracken Walk follows in order to keep the council car parks aligned in the town centre. Recommendation 2.2 sets out the preferred option of increasing fees as per table 2 on page 30. This is the maximum allowed increase under the lease. This still keeps the council's parking competitive to its neighbours and helps cover increased costs the council faces to run the car parks. The suggested increase in fees would raise circa £95,000 to £110,000 income per annum. It's of note that town centre footfall has increased by around 10%, but car parking usage has dropped by around 16% over the first quarter this year. This could be to do with competing car parks, public transport usage and residential developments in the town centre. Recommendation 2.3 sets out an increase for Bracknell and Wokingham College rates from £2.50 to £3 per day. With the potential average stay of 5 to 6 hours, the council is still subsidising student users by around £45,000 per annum. The final recommendation, 2.4, suggests that the method of agreeing town centre car parking rates should take place at the same time as all other fees and charges and in line with the budget setting process. Thank you, members. Be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Are there any questions, please? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for this. My question was, how do you measure footfall? Because it's interesting to see the car parking going down and the footfall going up. So I was just wondering how that was measured. Thank you.
So thank you for the question. Those figures are provided by the Lexicon, and they employ a company to measure footfall within the town centre, and they do various surveys at various times of the year in order to calculate that number.
Thank you.
can I ask a question, please? It says that the Avenue car park is really only absolutely chock-a-block when at Christmas time, and there's often a build-up to go in there. And yet Bracken Walk, we still have plenty of spaces there. The signage is always the electronic signage, so it always shows it. Does it show the spaces still? It does show the spaces that are available, so anybody coming into Bracknell would know to go to Bracken Walk because the other one is full up. That's
Yes, that's correct. So the really busy time in the lead up, sort of the month of December before Christmas, all of the electronic signage around the town centre it is updated automatically. So it measures how many cars are going in and out of the car parks, and therefore, if you look at that signage, you can see which car parks have space as you come into town. We also do communications in the lead up to Christmas to point out that there are other car parks in the town centre rather than just the Avenue, to try and spread the parking across a number of car parks.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? No? Thank you. Can I ask someone to move this then, please?
Councillor Neal, happy to move the item.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Can I have a seconder? I'll second it. Thank you. Councillor Neal, would you like to speak to it, please?
Thank you, Chair. We know that price increases are never welcome, and clearly we need to balance the income generated to the council and the impact to visitors to the town centre. The charges proposed take this into account, are reasonable and competitive, and mitigates larger price hikes in the future. I'm happy to move items 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 and 2.4 in the report.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? I would just like to say that the income from this, with the additional increase, would be 111,088, and I don't think we can afford to lose this income by making it any less. So hopefully the car parks will be continued to be used as much as they are this year, earlier for last year, and we regain the 16% so we can get the income from this. Would the mover like to wind up?
Nothing further to add, Chair.
Thank you. Can I ask everybody to raise their hand if they support this then, please? Thank you. Item 6 is the Housing Supplementary Planning Document, SPD, the consultation on this, and I will ask Andrew Hunter, he's on the other side, okay. I'll ask Andrew Hunter, Executive Director for Place, to present the report, please. You were over there just now.
Thanks, Leader. I'll do a very short, brief introduction to this, and then I'm happy to take any questions. So the report, as you mentioned, seeks the agreement from the Executive to undertake a statutory consultation on the supplementary planning document for housing. So just as by way of introduction, a supplementary planning document is a document that elaborates on or supplements policies which exist within the Council's development plan, and for us it's specifically the Bracknell Forest Local Plan. The Housing SPD has been developed to provide additional guidance to those seeking to put housing development within the borough, and has been developed with colleagues in our housing department, so it's a cross-council document. The document provides additional information on a number of policy areas, and those policy areas are set out at paragraph 5.3 of the report, but those include things like affordable housing, specialist accommodation for older people, protecting our existing housing stock, making sure that development is accessible and adaptable in terms of dwellings, and picks up on our housing mix policy. So all of those things are elaborated on within the document. Consultation on supplementary plan documents is prescribed, so you have to undertake that before you can adopt the plan. And the report sets out the consultation process at paragraph or section 7, and in a little more detail in appendix 2. We are proposing a 5-week consultation period between the 1st of October and early November. Once that consultation starts, we will alert all members so that they can publicise it widely amongst the community. So the recommendations before Executive tonight are set out at 2.1. So we're seeking approval of the content of the document, agreeing the consultation, and then looking for some delegations in case there are any sort of minor typos, etc., that need to be picked up prior to the consultation taking place. happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? Councillor Wright?
Thank you very much. As you know, we did a consultation on the town centre, and it was very well received. I was just wondering if any of the sort of learning experience from that has been reflected in this new consultation, any of the feedback. Thank you.
So the previous consultation was on the town centre master plan itself. So we've got the feedback for that from the master plan. In terms of the approach we're taking on this one, it's slightly less. It's not a development proposal, it's actual policies that we're elaborating on. So it's much more technical than the last one. So we're anticipating that the majority of the people responding will be those who are used to putting in planning applications, housing associations, etc. But one of the reasons I mentioned at the end about alerting members is we do want to get that feedback from the population as well, where they've got an input to make on some of those points. But it is very technical, this particular document, as opposed to the master plan, which is a bit more flexible.
Can I ask a question about policies becoming out of date? Because it said the Bracknell Forest the local plan was put in, and there were lots of policies out of place. But with a new government and with planning policies changing, does it mean that this is a sort of flexible supplementary planning document, so it can be adjusted if things are changed, or do we have to wait another 5 years?
So ultimately, this document is elaborating on the council's policies that are in its local plan, and the only way you change those policies is in the local plan, through the local plan process. What might happen is that the government might make a change in national position, which might require a change to a supplementary planning document because our policy gets changed by that. But otherwise, your policies are changed through the local plan process rather than you can't elaborate on them and change them through this process. This is only to elaborate on the ones that exist.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else got any questions? Can I ask someone to move this then? I'll move it. Can I ask someone to second it?
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second.
Thank you. I'll move this because I think it does say it's definitely needed, because it says how policies should be interpreted and applied to avoid any ambiguity in implementation of the Bracknell Forest local plan, which was adopted on March 2024. If we didn't adopt this, then it would make assessment of planning applications open to interpretation, and we can't afford that really, because then that means that we really don't know what sort of developments we're getting by whom. So I think this is a really important document. I think it's really easy to understand. I mean, I'm not a planner in any way, but I actually read it, you can understand it, and I think it's very comprehensive, and it makes it easy to follow the processes that would be adopted. So thank you for this, and thank you to the person who wrote it. So it's really good, or the team that wrote it. Would the seconder like to speak?
Yeah, thank you. Just really to say that when we were out speaking to people on the doorstep, I mean, people do know that we need more housing in Bracknell, and they all have stories of someone who's struggling to find accommodation. So I think people welcome it, and I also think that it's good to give them a say and recognise that we have a changing demographic, and that we need to protect our green spaces whilst at the same time increasing the housing available in the area. So I'm welcoming it, and I'm hoping that you'll get a good response in the public consultation. So thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? No? I'll sum up by just saying I think the definitions of what affordable and social housing and all the other sorts of housing that you can get is really clarify the situation as well. So it's a really good document. Can I ask all those in favour to raise their hand, please? Thank you. It's carried. Item 7, approval of the Biodiversity Action Plan. And this is a report that is going to be presented by the Andrew Hunter again. Hello, you're on the right.
Yeah. Thank you, Leader. So the purpose of this report is to seek the Executive's approval to the Biodiversity Action Plan, which covers the period up to 2029. The Executive will remember that the Action Plan was developed in partnership with the Bracknell Forest Nature Partnership, who oversee the implementation of the plan. So prior to consultation, you agreed a version of this plan to go out to consultation. That consultation took place in May and June of this year, and the plan before executive has been updated following that consultation. We received about 45 responses, formal responses to that, and that was from residents, nature groups, parish councils, etc. And it might seem like quite a low number, but because the plan had been developed in a partnership way, we'd already kind of engaged quite strongly with a number of people and a number of groups to develop it. And it's a plan that we've developed over time, because this is an iteration of a plan that's existed for quite some time. I'll draw the executive's attention to paragraph 5.11, and that sets out the key changes to the document. And I think probably the one that I would highlight is the fact that there's a much more detailed delivery plan contained within the document, and that will be monitored over the next 5 years by that group that I've just mentioned, so the Bracknell Forest Nature Partnership via Bracknell Forest Council. Following the if you approve the document tonight, then we'll put that up onto the website, and then we'll be monitoring that and putting updates onto the website when it's appropriate to do so. So the executive are asked simply just to approve the document as set out at 2.1. Happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions, please? None? Can I ask for a mover for this, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to move it.
Councillor Wright. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'm happy to second.
Councillor Purnell, thank you. Councillor Wright, would you like to speak to the document?
Okay. On behalf of the Council, I'd like to welcome this action plan. I was fortunate enough to join one of the biodiversity workshops at the Fox's Den in Binfield. Not only was it amazing to learn about all the different habitats we have here in the borough, we're certainly more than just forest, but it was also great to meet all the expert naturalists that live in the area. I came away from the workshop with a bat walk organised for our ward, a challenge to cycle through the green corridor of Bracknell town, and I also signed my husband up to do bird surveys in Binfield and down at the lakes in Sandhurst. What was also heartening was to see that so many organisations are involved and keen to protect and enrich biodiversity in the area. These are listed in point 65 in the paper and range from Priestwood Environmental Group to Natural England. Bracknell Forest has such a rich diversity of flora and fauna, and it is great that we have a clear commitment to protect it, which is why I'm proposing the approval of this biodiversity action plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak?
Thank you, Chair. This is a very inclusive plan with 11 overarching objectives and, importantly, measurable targets. As Andrew said, there are 45 responses to the consultation, which are all included in the appendix, and the Council's responses to the issues are very detailed, and the action plan has been modified as a result. An example of the change that's been made is the inclusion of water monitoring as an item in the delivery of the plan. Also, after it's been adopted, the internal design team will ensure it is accessible to all, so I am more than happy to second this item.
I would like to say that this is a superb plan. Biodiversity is a really important part of climate change, and this is a really vital report as well. And it really shows the partnership within the community, how so many people were involved. And I think at one stage it suggested that we should also pass this on to maybe the council, the town council and parish councils to actually look at as well, because it is a really good base for everybody to compare, I think. And so I think it's an excellent document, and thank everybody for what they've done to make it so inclusive. Would the winder like to move? Mover like to wind up? Sorry, winder like to move. Would the mover like to wind up, please?
Thank you, Chair. I've got nothing else to say. Thank you.
Okay, can I ask for all those in favour of accepting this document, raise their hand, please. Thank you. That's unanimous. We then go on to item 8, the Council Plan Overview Report. And we welcome Susan Halliwell, Chief Executive, to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. This Council Plan Overview Report is the first quarterly report against the Council's new Council Plan that was agreed in November of last year and runs from 2023 to 2027. Subsequent to its approval, we then developed up service plans for each of the areas, and you will see in the full report progress mapped against all activities and the key performance indicators that were approved through the council plan approval process. The report reports against progress against the 4 strategic priorities within the plan: engaged and healthy communities, thriving and connected economy, green and sustainable environment, and ambitious, resilient and sustainable organisation. Listed as highlights within the report itself, there are some key achievements, which I'll just pull out a few of them. For example, over 1,000 carers were involved in creating a new all-age integrated carers strategy. We delivered a 1.6 million refurbishment of Bracknell Leisure Centre, which included a new spin studio and the Play World, which is a soft play area within the leisure centre. We also we were awarded, the Ministry of Defence Employer Recognition Scheme Silver Award, which was a great progress from previous years. And we've had, as we've seen from this agenda this evening, there was a wide public engagement through a consultation process for developing the town centre master plan. Within the report, though, it does highlight some challenges and key challenges that I would pull out here. Is the identification in the early part of this financial year of a potential overspend. And this is primarily due to an increase in demand and cost of providing adult and children's services. And we've enhanced spending controls within the organisation, and we continue to monitor progress against those. 2 other key areas I'd highlight are delivering against the new Procurement Act. Has been highlighted as a significant challenge for the organisation to ensure that we have delivered all that we need to by October 2024. I would just like to update members at this stage that there has been an announcement that the start date of the new Act coming into effect has been deferred by several months. So you will see a change in the next quarterly report. However, it is still part of our corporate improvement programme, and we will still operate at pace to ensure that we are ready for the implementation of the Procurement Act. Another key area to note is that delivery of affordable homes in line with the forecast that we had predicted is looking at risk at the moment due to challenges securing registered providers of social housing. One final point I'd like to make is that we have committed to make sure that this CPOR report is accessible. We recognise that some of the tables, and I think it's getting better, but we recognise that some of the tables within the report are still at times difficult to read. We will be transferring from a piece of software that we use to another piece of software that in time will ensure that we have better reporting, but that won't be this year, I'm afraid. But the project is in train to ensure that we do that. So I will leave that there. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No? That's all right.
Is one of the reasons that you're struggling to find the registered providers for housing, is that to do with the new builds? Because we were talking about this previously and how it was due to... I mean, is there anything we can do about that? Have you got anything in progress for the housing providers?
Yeah, I was just looking because Andrew Hunter was asked the same question at Overview and Scrutiny. So I was just seeing if he was popping up on screen because he gave a really good answer. There he is. But Andrew, did you want to provide that answer, or
yeah,
I can do it in part? Yeah, okay.
Well, just to say that the matter that's in hand at the moment is that it's the kind of the funding that the affordable housing providers have got available for schemes that are secured through planning, essentially. And we're finding that they are finding it hard to get interested in those schemes. Some of the things that the housing team are doing are trying to broaden the remit of who they talk to about housing schemes. So at the moment, we've obviously got a number of housing providers in the borough, but there are others, large players out in the wider area who we could be using in Bracknell Forest. So we're trying to cast the net wider so that we've got other people who we can start talking to. We'll also be raising this up through Homes England, who are a contact and their delivery agents for affordable housing, and also, if need to, up through ministers. So it's approached a number of ways.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I'd like to move this. You've just absolutely stolen everything I was going to say. But I will say it's a really positive report. I think there's so much going on that is really a positive. It is the first one since the council plan was adopted. I really appreciate the 4 strategy priorities and the way everything is reported into it, and how the service plans are being monitored. I think the soft play area has opened, and I'm really pleased to say that there's special times for the SEND children to use it now as well, which was requested by the residents. So you asked and it's been delivered. And so there's less lights and no music or less sound, so children can go there and feel happy at playing, which is really, really good. Another thing I think is there, which is reported, was the inaugural meeting of the Berkshire Prosperity Board, and I think that's a really important thing. It joins all the 6 unitary authorities of Berkshire into one bigger organisation. We still keep our autonomy, but if there's bids to get money from the government, or if there's anything else on the strategic things and infrastructure, we can actually do it as a bigger body and a bigger population, and therefore hopefully succeed rather than a single unitary authority. So that's a big move forward. We do notice the observations made from the overview and scrutiny have been read and they've been noted. Some other things that have come up for me, I'm really pleased to announce, is the 4th Ranger vehicle has been bought which has gone from diesel to electric, and that maintains the natural estate, and so we continue to go and electric where we can. And also there's a bus service implementation plan, improvement plan has been submitted, and that is it is hopeful there will be more frequent Sunday services, and that is a request again from residents. So the whole report is really interesting and really good to see, and there's lots of green bullet points all the way through it with a very few red. But it would be, and I'd also like to say that the actual, beside every one of the service plans and every one of the monitoring, the targets being monitored, the explanation and the detail that goes with it is really appreciated, because that was not always given. So you were left to see a red triangle and not really understand why it was on red, and the amber dots, and you really now understand where the situation and what is happening and what will happen to improve that. So I think it's a really good move forward, and thank you to all those that helped produce it. Would the seconder like to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Neil, happy to second the item. As always, we would like to thank officers for their hard work and contributing to this report and set of results. As already mentioned, there are some real highlights in the report and all things that will make a real difference to residents. Clearly, the budget remains an area that is closely monitored, and the inclusion of the Procurement Act within the Corporate Improvement Programme is a pertinent move to manage this large-scale change.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? I don't need to wind up. I just need to move the recommendation to note the performance of the Council over the period from April to June 2024, as we've discussed tonight. All those in favour? Thank you. Then we move on to item 9, which is the quarterly update on SEND improvement. And I welcome Grania Siggins, Executive Director of People, to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. As previously agreed, the report you have in front of you is the quarterly update on our improvement journey in relating to services for children with special educational needs and disabilities. The update includes content from our written statement of action last formally review meeting, which was earlier in the year. It includes an update on the developments in relation to the SEND strategy and also the developments in relation to a safety valve. Within the new governance arrangements, we are attempting to articulate our broader SEND improvement journey within the context of our SEND strategy, which has been co-produced with a range of stakeholders and parents and young people themselves. So in the context of the report, rather than going through all of the details, I just want to highlight the developments in the provision locally, which does include ongoing an update on the provision for the specialist resource provisions, which includes more accessible places for children and young people, and also the ongoing developments with the two school establishments which will be accessible for a broader range of children locally with special education needs and disabilities. And just to remind colleagues, currently we are too many of our children are being educated out of borough, and it remains the intention to have a significant increase in capacity in borough of special educational needs and school places. And I'll pause there, Chair, for questions.
So thank you. Is there any questions, Councillor Wright?
Yeah, thank you very much. I was just wondering about numbers, like how many children in the borough have some kind of special, have been classified as having some kind of special educational need? What's the scale of the issue?
Okay, within our schools we have a range of children who have SEND support, which is special educational needs and support provided directly by our school establishment. So a lot of our schools do support children with significant need within that school environment without an educational health and care plan. And then we have, as of the end of June, we have 1,523 children who've got education, health and care plans, and those numbers continue to increase.
Another question? No, thank you. Are there any other questions? None? I would like to ask that it says in the plan that East Berks Learning Disability and Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service, CAMS, launched in January 2024. Can I ask how this is helping our children with special educational needs in Bracknell Forest?
Sorry, Chair. As you can see from our written statement of action, providing the therapeutic interventions for children with additional needs was some of the areas that we needed to focus on. And Berkshire Health Foundation Trust, who are one of our local health providers, have undertaken a piece of work to understand the gaps in service. And they did identify that there wasn't suitable provision for children with learning disability who require child and adolescent mental health provision. So the service was created in January this year. It's been ramping up slowly in terms of the capacity. The information that I was able to glean from our colleagues was that as of the end of August, there had been 16 Bracknell Forest children who'd been actively in support of the service. And for the whole of Berkshire, within the catchment area, there have been 148 referrals. So the type of support that they are, so the main source of referrals is schools, education colleagues and paediatricians, and they provide a range of services and support. I haven't got any information on this occasion in terms of the impact and the outcomes provided for those children, but we'll make sure it's included in the next report because it will be included in the review within the written statement of action. Thank you.
The other question I want is I'd like to ask is about occupational therapists again, because the time waiting it's decreased. The average is now 52 weeks about, and the longest has been reduced from 83 weeks to 64 weeks. But for a child needing, how are we doing? It's not necessarily Bracknell Forest's problem, but the effect is. But what can we do to improve this?
Yeah. It's an interesting area and something that everybody who's involved in children with special educational needs are looking at, because our referral rate from Bracknell Forest is very high in terms of children who aren't known to the occupational therapy service. So they have implemented a triage service. so that for children that they don't know, they can obtain lots of information about those children so they can undertake and give advice as needed. So it's called the advice part, it's part of the triage. For those children who then need an occupational therapy assessment, the waiting times continue, they don't restart, and so they're all part of the same waiting time for those assessments. So some of the challenge is actually getting to know the children who they've never been made aware of, and we're trying to understand why is it the children may have gone through quite a lot of their school career and actually aren't known to occupational therapy and other services. Because when we establish and set up an education, health and care plan, we go out to those specialist services and ask them for input on that child. So it would be expected that a lot of those children would already be known to services, but there's quite a high cohort in Bracknell Forest who aren't known to services.
Right, thank you. Are there any other questions? No? Thank you. I would like to move this recommendation. Is it a seconder, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second it.
So I will move this and say that there's some really positive information in this report. There's lots of really positive stuff, and I think the May feedback from the Department of Education on the written statement of action did say that many of the actions are now complete, and I think there are some real signs in the number of the complaints have gone down, and the number of EHCP that are being applied for is still increasing, so that's still putting a lot of pressure on everybody. But it is now I think it'll be fully staffed in October, so that is a really big move. And in the residents, there are still some concerns, but there are also some recognition that things are improved and it's really getting better for some of our children, and people are telling you about this, so I think that's a really positive move. So well done to everybody that's involved, and it's really good that we've fully staffed now, because that helps to tell your story once and then get some reaction. So thank you for everybody that's involved in that. I also would like to say I think it's really good that we got the successful bid for the Short Break Innovation Fund to develop a 6-week programme for 9 to 25 aged people who are socially isolated, to give them to gain confidence and independence. And I think I don't know how many it's involved, but for each single person or child, that's a really big thing to help. So I think well done to those who put in for the bid. And it's a 6-week programme, and I'd really be interested to find out what the output of that is as well, because I'm sure it will make a difference to them. The second, I'd like to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say thank you for this quarterly update on the SEN written statement of action. It's really good to have this quarterly update, and I'd like to recognise the hard work of all the officers, because I know that everyone has been working incredibly hard to address the issues in Zend. The commitments in the written statement of action and the safety valve programme involve negotiation, planning and review with multiple bodies, including the Council, the Department for Education, the NHS, local academies, and most importantly, the children and their families that are at the heart of this work. For this reason, we are glad that the Council and the residents are kept up to date with this quarterly statement, and we know that the pathway out of the challenging situation will not always be smooth, but transparency and honesty is always valued. And like the leader said, it's great also to hear that we've got full quota of staff. So thank you so much for all your hard work on it. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? I've nothing else to say, so can I ask to wind up? So can I ask everybody, please, in favour of supporting the update on the SEND improvement, to raise their hand, please? Thank you. Thank you very much, Mumia. Right, item 10. Before we go on to item 10, I have to remind people that the annex contains exempt information as defined in Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Now, I assume that if anybody had anything to talk about that's in that exempt information, they would have already raised it. So I am not if we want to raise it now, I have to close this meeting, and I do not want to close any meeting. I want it to be kept open and transparent if possible. So is there anybody who wants to discuss the content of the annex in detail during this meeting? None? All right, thank you. I then move on to item 10. If during the discussion on item 10 I have to close it, then that's what I will have to do, but let's try and keep away from confidential information. Item 10 is the retender of property and motor insurance and claims handling services, and Stuart McKellar, Executive Director of Resources, to present the report, please.
Thank you, Leader. This report doesn't impact directly on residents. However, it is important that we do have insurance in place for the assets which are used to deliver the services to them. So this report deals with insurance for property and motor. The local government market for insurance is very limited, and the insurers who are active in it are all on the Yorkshire Purchasing Organisations framework. That's kind of the local government equivalent to compare the market. So we propose to go through that route, and we'll, as we normally do, and as anyone does when they're looking at their insurances, we will compare a number of different level of excesses as we go through that before we come to the final award, to make sure it's the best value for money that we can secure. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No questions. Can I ask a member to move the recommendations 2.1 and 2.2 on page 261, please?
Councillor Neil, happy to move the item.
Thank you. Can I ask for a seconder, please?
Councillor Purnell, happy to second.
Thank you. Would the mover like to speak?
Thank you, Chair. And just to say, clearly having suitable insurance is important for the organisation, and also motor insurance is a legal requirement. What is proposed here falls within the financial regulations, and I'd like to thank Stuart for his report, and I'm happy to move the items at 2.1 and 2.2. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Just to add my thanks for the report. Happy to second the recommendation in line with the financial regulations and taking into account the detail included in the report. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Would the mover like to wind up?
Nothing further to add, Chair.
Can I then ask everybody for a vote, please, for this to accept this report? Thank you. Thank you. I therefore, I think they close the meeting, please. I think that's the end of it.